Afternoon or good morning, everyone, wherever you are. My name is Samer Forsley. I am the CEO of Simitech Multimedia, and I will be moderating this very exciting talk today. It's an industry panel of experts that we are quite honored to have with us. And so we'll introduce them in a second and have them answer some questions for us. There's no like preset presentations, more questions about the industry and challenges that people in the maintenance world are facing, especially when it comes to skilled labor. Today's webinar will be recorded and we'll be making a copy of that available for those who have signed up and on our website. If you have any questions, please use the Q&A function available through the Zoom software, and we will address it to the panelists. If there's a specific question to someone, please let us know, or if it's a general question, just leave it as a general question and we'll go from there. So without further ado, with me today are three out of the four great people who have been in the maintenance and in the industrial area for some time. Michael Tippett is the equipment maintenance training specialist at Polar Semiconductor. I'll have them introduce themselves in a minute. I'm just gonna tell you who they are first. Chi unfortunately could not make it with us today. He's in Nigeria. He works for the Nigeria Breweries, which is part of Heineken, and he had some technical issues and could not join us, so we will miss him. Tex is the maintenance manager and training manager at Tyson Foods, and Lonnie Bailey is Director of Labor Management and Maintenance Training at Pilgrims. So excited to have you all, and if you don't mind, I'm gonna ask you all to introduce yourself, what you do, and your favorite movie, just to put you on the spot. Okay, Michael, you start.
Okay, Michael Tippett. I have been working for Polar. Well, I've been working at that building for 25 years. It's changed hands a few times, but 25 years, the first 20 were in equipment maintenance, working on the floor on semiconductor manufacturing equipment. Then I jumped into equipment engineering, to deal more with the problem-solving side rather than troubleshooting of equipment. And just this year, I jumped into being a training specialist, which I've been training for many years. I just haven't had an official title, so it's nice to finally get myself to that point. It's been a good match for me. I enjoy helping people find that aha moment, when they finally get it, something clicks, and they can move forward in troubleshooting. Favorite movie? Oh boy. I'm just gonna say Spaceballs.
All right. I was gonna start playing you the Jeopardy music so you can answer with it. All right, Tex, you're up next.
Tex Ballinger, Manager of Maintenance Training for Tyson Foods. I've been there actually 3 years tomorrow. Prior to that, I worked at Baldor Electric for 39 years, and my background is maintenance management, production management. So I've just been all over the place doing a lot of different things at the facilities, and I directed a lot of the maintenance responsibilities, and now we're responsible for work. There was a group of us responsible for working with the maintenance at Tyson Foods to help them develop training programs and to enhance their abilities because we pay for performance. So it's we also get the more they train, the more they make. So favorite movie has got to be, and my wife is standing here, Be Cool. She gets tired of me watching that, but it's an older movie, but it's pretty funny.
Cool. All right, Lonnie, you're up next.
Hey, everybody. Lonnie Bailey. My background was in chemical engineering. I was in the chemical industry for about 25 years before, like Tex, I joined the chicken industry about 3 years ago. So I've had, production manager, plant manager, safety, directors, training, develop training programs within the chemical industry. Since I've been with Pilgrims, I started off as the maintenance director for one of their business units. About a year and a half ago, we started a new maintenance training program. And then as of March of this year, I added labor management on top of that for the entire company. So as far as a favorite movie, I'm an avid golfer, but I'm not going to say Caddyshack because I like Tin Cup. Tin Cup was a
good choice.
Excellent. All right, so let's get going. So the first set of questions are COVID related. So, you know, we're going to ask you to answer them one at a time, and then if there's discussion, we can have it. If there's any questions from the audience related to those, please submit it now. So we'll start with, how has COVID-19 impacted your plant or your company? So we'll start with Michael at the top.
From a maintenance standpoint, because you are considered, you have to be at the machine working on it, so all the maintenance techs are still there. But from a factory standpoint, we now have social distancing rules. You have to wear a mask anytime you're in a public area. We've got a temperature monitoring and tracking system where anytime you come into the building, you have to have your temperature taken with an infrared thermometer, and that's logged so that if your temperature's high, then you get it verified or you leave. So a lot of us, like now, we're working from home because just to minimize our interaction with other people. So it's been a little bit of a challenge to try to interact. I'm a maintenance trainer, so to interact with the maintenance people when I'm not there has been a bit of a challenge. You have to rely on emails and text and phone calls more often because I can't just walk 30 feet and go talk to a technician.
Okay, text?
Exactly the same. I mean, that was word for word exactly what Michael just described was our, along with our maintenance. And then the other impact is with our production side, because with the chicken beef, or what a lot of institutions, we used to do a lot of schools, restaurants, stuff, with all that being closed, had to go and try to figure out how to get all the institutional 40-pound boxes into retail stores and stuff so everybody could eat. So that was huge for our facilities. Maintenance had a big part of that, and just exactly like Michael stated, we, social distancing, putting petitions up. One of the things that's really been surprising, I guess, and maybe not surprising, was that if we do test positive for COVID, and then you have to wait 14 days and then have to do 2 negative tests to come back. And so the testing's been suspect, I guess. And some aspect, it's easy to get a positive test. It's kind of hard to get a negative test. So it's been surprising.
And I'm sure there's an impact on, like, how people feel at work and on stress levels, probably. I'm not sure if you've all observed any of that, but I wonder what that impact meant on, like, on staff and how they perceive this whole thing anyways.
Yeah, I think all the above. I mean, when you look at it, when we talk to people that's actually had it, there seems to be 2 or 3 different scenarios. One is you lose your smell and taste. You might have a light fever, or you die. I mean, it just scares people because we don't know too much about it, and we don't know. So yes, it's the way it's presented. I think a lot of times is that you're either going to be okay, you're going to be through it, or you're going to pass away. So I think that scares a lot of people. It's just the unknown, I think, is just big.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, Lonnie, what's it been like on your side with Pilgrims and JPS?
Again, mimic what Mike and Tex were saying. Absentee, anywhere between 30 and 60% at times.
Oh, wow. Okay.
At some of our sites. And then with the government, kind of, giving the extra $600 for unemployment, we have actually seen people use COVID to, hey, I'll just claim unemployment instead of coming to work because I can make just about as much money.
Right.
We've seen that as well. Same thing with Mike and Tex. We're doing a lot of, infrared scanning, everybody coming in the plant, a lot of social distancing, putting a lot of dividers in between, cafeteria and break room areas. We're building other structures outside to help with that social distancing and putting tents and stuff like that. So a huge impact, monetary standpoint, putting all these things in place and, and still trying to keep a plant running, with potentially half the staff that you're used to.
Right.
And the same thing Tex and Tyson is facing. We have a prepared foods division, so a lot of your schools and stuff like that, and a lot of your restaurants shut down. So a lot of these, trying to find a home for all these birds, if you will, has been a challenge from a company standpoint.
What are you guys thinking for the fall? I mean, so we've gone through it. We have a few months under our belt now with experience with this thing, but what do you think is going to look like, especially with back to school and people maybe wanting time off? What does it look like from challenges and scheduling and issues that come with the fall? With the fall, Michael, start with you.
Same soup, different day. I mean, we've figured out how to manage a lot of this, so I think it's going to be more of the same. I don't see it going away anytime soon. Obviously, there are two very different sides to the argument, and I try not to get involved with. I don't watch the news. I don't get politically affiliated with anything, but it does seem like that this is going to be an ongoing issue into the fall and winter, to me, in my opinion.
Okay. Tex or Lonnie, what do you think?
Yeah, same. Well, I think until we get I know they're trying to rush the vaccine, and until it's proven what time frame that is, I think we're going to be exactly like we are today. So
yeah.
I don't see the fall being much, if any, different than it is today.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we can talk about it from a training point of view and a scheduling training point of view. So how has that impacted, how has COVID and the fact that you may be remote, or maybe there's different shifts now, or maybe people training from home, like how has COVID impacted your ability to deliver training, and what does that look like in the next few months?
For me, if you want me to, so for me, being in charge of the maintenance side of the training, nothing changed. Obviously, we had to change our classroom setups and, buying each person individual earphones and headphones and stuff on their computers and stuff. But from that aspect, we still, try to stick with our normal schedule of allowing maintenance mechanics 3 hours a week to train.
Okay.
And we have an extensive curriculum and everything else. And training will forever be a part of their career as the way we built this program. So from that aspect of getting their 3 hours and stuff like that, that has not changed since the beginning. We just had to stagger times and limit the amount of people in the classroom is the only thing that's really changed.
Okay. Michael and Tex?
Oh, we had just started in February, March, a week-long onboarding program where we took the technicians, and it used to be that you would just start to hang out with the other technicians and pick up things as you go. And now we've got an actual week of classes where you sit in the classroom for a week and you get exposure, probably not, full training, but at least exposure to the different systems we use, the software we need, and things like that. And that came about right as COVID was hitting. So we've done that 4 times since then, but every time it's been 4 people in a room, all spread out, you're wearing your mask, and you've had to, adjust your expectations for that because you just can't have a big classroom of people. So we have to do that in small batches.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, with us, the same as Pilgrims, we're doing 3 hours a week. And so as far as the plants, other than the absenteeism, it hasn't really affected that from my perspective. We had just purchased a large number of pieces of equipment to do some centralized training. We were actually going to try to bring people into our facility in Northwest Arkansas from our plants. If you're not familiar with Tyson, a lot of our facilities are in Northwest Arkansas, Georgia, Alabama, some places, so it's almost drivable. So we were planning on doing some of those, like a central training, enhanced training, other than what the plants was doing. So that actually happened. We had 6 folks in the day we were told to send everybody home and stop. So that we had just started that. So that has been a challenge, not so much at the plant level, but what we were trying to do as a corporate entity across the facilities was been a challenge.
Okay, got it. Okay, maybe we'll shift gears a little bit and talk about other topics. I mean, COVID hopefully will be behind us with a vaccine that hopefully will get developed soon. So let's talk about other issues facing the industry. So the next topic we wanted to kind of chat about is the whole idea of a skills gap. So what I kind of wanted to go around and just ask you, what do you think that means? I mean, when you hear, or what do you think of skills gap, what does that actually mean to you or to your company?
When I just was sitting in our maintenance break room a while ago, and I was talking with someone who had been through a full automation robotics program, and about how I was trying to develop something in-house to, shore up those skills. And he said that program, that 2-year program, did not prepare him for what he needed to know to be able to do this job. And 3 or 4 other people in the area said the same thing. They just typed in and said, yeah, I went through 2 years of training, and then I walked into a job, and I had no idea how I was going to apply what I learned, because it didn't have to do with the things I was going to do. So even if you've got a professional program that people are going through, I don't see that really prepares people for the type of industry needs that we have.
Okay. Tex and Lonnie?
I agree completely. We're seeing that. So the skills gap, in my opinion, is that one is that we just don't have the people that can actually troubleshoot and fix the equipment and or the processes that has the problem. So we do a lot of parts changing. So but we're seeing that. We're trying to work with some of our technical schools and some of the folks, because for whatever reason, a lot of the education thinks it's important to get a degree or some kind of a certificate. And that is a lot of theory and a lot of information. And really what we're needing is the hands-on. We're really needing the people to come in and do. And that's where I was thankful when we did see, and I know we talked about this, but I was thankful to see SemiTech, because actually to me that is a hands-on type of tool that we can use and help us with the skills gap and develop and perceive what that actually is. We're trying to work with our schools, because we're finding that, in my opinion, what we're seeing is that a lot of the educational folks thinks it's very important that we have some kind of degree. However, that doesn't translate into what we need at the facility.
Yeah.
Okay, Lonnie?
Yeah, so mimic pretty much with what Mike and Tex were talking about. So, but from a skills gap standpoint, I'm going to relate it to my old world. I had guys coming in that were operators or had knowledge or an overall knowledge, but to Mike's point, maybe not so much the practical side of things, right? The biggest thing that I have seen a difference when it came from my old career versus this one is just the quality of people that you're getting, because from Tex, I hope you can, confirm this, but, the pay scale that you get from the chicken industry mechanic, you don't have a whole lot of people just knocking on your door wanting, to say, hey, I'm a master electrician, I'm going to go get a job at Tyson or Pilgrims, right? So it's a challenge for us, because what we end up having to do is develop those skills versus hiring those skills. And the way when we built our program, the way we are trying to combat that is everything we do in our program, I break everything down to 2 types of training, the formal side and then the practical side. So for instance, if I sit there and give somebody some hydraulic training, they take the course online, some kind of CBT.
Lonnie, you still there? I'm not sure.
I immediately then I can try the equipment. So I can I do a hands-on lab, and then I go straight into, hey, how does it affect me on a cage dumper?
Okay, Lonnie, you're breaking up. Something happened to your phone. So while you're getting caught up on that, I'll just go back to Michael and to Tex. I have a question kind of related to the topic we've been talking about. Are you seeing a lot of crossover between people who are from the mechanical side that you want them to become electrical or vice versa? Like, are you trying to cross in terms of skilled labor? And what does that skills gap look like for people who have been there for some time and now you're changing technology? How does that get addressed?
We have a person right now that we hired who was a machinist.
Okay.
So he brings a lot of mechanical skill to what he does, but he told us up front, he knows he doesn't have any electronics or electrical, and he wants to.
Okay.
So, identifying those kinds of things with people who will just be willing to say, I am weak in this area. I need to shore up my skills here to be a well-rounded technician. So it's good that he does that, because a lot of people, if you ask 10 technicians if they're fully qualified to do their job, any 10 of them are going to say yes. No one's going to say, oh no, I can only do half my job. The rest of it, I really don't know what I'm doing. Nobody's going to say that. So it's important to, the trainer before me, he actually put together a lot of information. He did a needs assessment for one area and surveyed the area, talked to everyone, did surveys, and figured out what skills. And it was great. Everyone was very open about what they needed to do more of and what they needed to learn. So a skills assessment turned out to be a very good tool for us to say, this is where you really need to focus your skills and your training.
And you built your own in-house skills assessment.
Correct.
Okay. Tex, did you do the same? What do you do for skills assessment? And what do you do with people who want to cross over between different types of work?
So we encourage that, because that is when we start off at different levels of our program, that is the mechanical level is how you start, and then move into hydraulics, pneumatics, and then the electrical side. So we do encourage that a lot, simply because it's helpful for all team members, and the plant itself is to have a good skill set. So we've identified that, and again, that's how I partnered with Semitech 2 years ago, and we're also working with another company that is doing the hands-on. It's a physical board that we actually do, comes with the curriculum and everything, and so we're going through, and it's a 24-volt system, so we can walk people through the electrical side, and it's basically looks like the inside of some of the panels. It's got motor controls and things. So that's been, we help identify those folks, because we really need people to be electrical mechanical.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay. Lonnie, are you back with us audio-wise?
Yeah, so I just switched my audio from my computer over to my phone. So is that better?
Yeah, much better.
Okay, perfect. So I don't know what you caught when I was losing connection earlier, but same kind of thing. So the way we built our program, we have a skills assessment. We got 8 different levels. We do the same thing. We're teaching folks on hydraulics, pneumatics, electrical, and mechanical. The one thing that we're doing is every time, and I said it before, and I apologize if you heard it, but we break everything down into practical and, in the formal part of training. I call it formal and practical. So if they take a course on hydraulics or electrical or anything else, we immediately go into a hands-on lab. So the sites that we have, what we call impact, our training, that entire curriculum is they'll take a course, CBT, if you will, computer-based training. They'll immediately go into a hands-on lab. And then the last thing we tie it together is how it affects their piece of equipment. And then they'll get trained on that specific piece of equipment. So we're trying to tie all 3 phases of that training together to really obtain that knowledge for those team members.
Okay. Just kind of to keep going down the line for the questions here, just want to hit all the topics before we run out of time today. What are you guys doing for hiring? Are you hiring? And if so, what are some of the issues, and how you overcome these issues?
Well, I can start. We try to hire skilled labor. It's very difficult. Sometimes we're not the highest paying employer in the area. So that's a challenge, but also it seemed like the workforce, the people available. In my prior life, I lived in a rural area. We had very few manufacturing opportunities. We paid very well at the plant I used to work at, and I could tell when we had some kind of management change at another facility, I would start getting people coming to my plant with their resumes. So I was very fortunate with that. However, here for multiple plants. We got over 100 facilities. So it's been very difficult to try to hire skilled labor when there's just not a lot of folks out there.
Absolutely agree with Tex that people don't have the desire. You know, I equate that to growing up on a farm and learning to work on equipment at a younger age. And that was something that is just part of your internal wiring. So to go into a factory and start working on things, that was my dream job. So you don't see that kind of thing anymore. Our culture hasn't developed that in the previous generation to get out and do those kinds of things. You know, they're more content. I'm not going to say it's bad because it's not, but they're more content to sit in front of a screen and play a game or do something online rather than actually develop some type of electromechanical skill or the basics of it. And again, I'm not saying that gaming is bad, but it doesn't develop the type of skills that we need to hire them to come into this type of job and do it.
Okay, Lonnie, what are you seeing?
Yeah, same kind of thing, and that's kind of, and I'm not trying to toot Sammer and Simutech's horn, but that's the one thing that I love about this program is because of these millennials. And to Mike's point, you know, these guys are just content to be sitting on their phone versus learning a skill, right? And it's a kind of a dying breed. Mm-hmm. So along with Simutech, and it's almost like for these kids to be able to play a game. It's almost like making a video game to make it interesting for electrical troubleshooting. We do the same kind of thing when it comes to welding. We have some virtual reality, augmented reality kind of stuff too. And so we're trying to make the training fun and interactive for these young 20-year-olds, if you will. And then make them, you know, hey, I really would like to know how to do, you know, this or that, because these guys are right. I mean, some of these people that we get in there, they can't read a tape measure, and then we're trying to turn them into a mechanic. And so it's a challenge, but yeah.
And do you find that they need like more basic training? And just as a follow-up question, do you find that most of the people that are target for like hiring are like gamers by nature, or just given how they grew up or the time they grew up in? Like, are they all gamers, so to speak?
For our in text, let me know if it's different for you, but a lot of the kids that we have coming in, they may have, you know, their family has a farm or a background in a farm. So some of those kids are hard workers, but they're kind of getting between few and far between now. But yeah, when we make it fun and interactive, you know, for any of them, even the older guys that have been doing it for 25 years, they're having fun. And kind of like, hey, I wish this training was around when I was their age, kind of thing. But that's I think that's the key with training, any kind of training. You got to make it fun and interactive, or you're going to lose the crowd quick.
Michael, Charles, Tex, sorry, anything to add to the comment from Lonnie?
Yes, same thing. That's exactly the same issues we're having. Fortunately, some of our areas are very rural, and we do have a lot of people coming in from the rural areas, so they have had some farm skills, and those folks seem to be more apt to be working with us. And that's what we're seeing too is it's a complete opposite deal. I mean, they're either really good or really bad, and maybe bad's not the right. But they don't know anything. Not only can they not read a tape measure, they can't pull one out of a toolbox because they've never been exposed to that. They don't even know what it is. Or they're very good at what they can do. They can come in and weld, have some mechanical skills or whatever. So, yeah, we see it's not kind of a 30, 40, 50%. It's either all or nothing. It's been a challenge.
A lot of it is what I come down to people's wiring or their gifting or whatever. Some people are just really good at things. And if they've got those kind of skills, they like to enhance them. They like to bring that out. So the both ends of the spectrum that Tex mentions, that's absolutely true. Either you've been interested in it, and so you try to develop it yourself because that's how your brain works. That's what you like to do. Or you have no interest and have not developed those skills.
Okay. We just got a couple of questions that came across. I'm going to toss them to the group here and get your opinions on them. First one's from Tim. What do you do with users who replace lots of components with troubleshooting? in Simutech. Oh, this is assuming somebody's using Simutech, and they're reading. But what do you do in general for those who are like, we call them change engineers, or parse changers? Anyways, what do you do with these people?
The few times I've had that show up when I look at the reporting, I've engaged in them on one-on-one, where I express to them, I see this happening, and let's get together and talk about it. So we'll go into a room and walk through some Simutech exercises. I'll use the whiteboard to try to explain some things, and try to explain why it is that you don't want to do that. And what it generally comes down to is that they don't have, and Simutech's very clear about that, is that this is a troubleshooting program for people that have had electrical experience. This doesn't teach you electricity or electronics. So if they've not had that core foundational electrical skill set developed, then not everything in Simutech is going to make sense to them. So it's been a good tool for us to help, not weed those out, but just highlight where people need to get more training and get more foundational things so that they can then use the tools better.
Okay.
Exactly. We're seeing the same thing. We have the thing that Simutech may not, anytime we have a negative comment on Simutech, it's because, one, the person has never been inside of an electrical panel. They've never been exposed to an electrical schematic. And then we put them in front of a computer with these training scenarios and expect them to walk through it and have no idea how even the light bulb works. So that's on us being the ones trying to administer this. And I've had to go back and request that some of the folks that are put in the Simutech training, we got to make sure that they've been exposed to some of this stuff. It will be a negative impact on the person if they've never been exposed or do not know how an electrical schematic works.
Okay. I'm going to ask the next question. I'm going to read it as it came, and I'll start with Lonnie. I'll take his comment on it first and then circle back. So the way the question reads is that, how are you tying maintenance training to functional failure modes or any other asset management strategies?
That was a mouthful. Say it one more time.
How are you tying maintenance training to functional failure modes or any other asset management strategies?
So obviously, anytime we have any kind of function failure or anything like that, depending on the downtime event, we have RCAs that we do. And that's actually even part of our training for the supervisor, to really, truly, what is an RCA? And it's much more than a check the box exercise, which unfortunately may have been the way it's been done in the past. But as far as the training side, we're always evolving. This thing is fluid. And so we're definitely use the data on a day-to-day basis or a week-to-week basis to figure out where our opportunities are at. And so if we see that we're having a big issue in a certain field, regardless if it's at that plant or any other plant, because all of my trainers talk to each other, and it's so we're sharing constantly. So we have developed new courses in our program almost on a weekly basis, to help combat what the individual just asked about.
Okay,
I hope that answers that question.
We'll find out if there's a follow-up. So, Michael, what do you think?
One of the things that we use as a training tool at Polar is Cornerstone, which is a software package that you buy into, and it manages training throughout your company. And we've developed what we call a one-point lesson, whereas, and I think I'm answering the question, maybe not, but if we find a shortcoming somewhere, somebody made a mistake and we scrapped a bunch of product, that we'll have them put together a real brief 1 or 2 slide explanation of what happened and then the right way to do it. And then we'll assign that training to everyone so that they then have the opportunity to see that. They don't miss it in an email or at the shift pass downs, things like that.
Okay. Dex?
So it was exactly what Lonnie was talking about. We do it on a weekly basis. We go through and review downtime on the weekly, kind of look at the top 5, top 10 downtime issues, and we can enhance our training based on that. Was there a skills gap? Did we do a wrong PM? Or we have to, all that's reviewed to see why we had a downtime event.
Okay, I am going to jump to the next slide. We have 2 or 3 topics there that I want to make sure we address before we take up. There's a couple more questions that are just coming through. So let's take a look at the next set of questions on the next slide and then go back to the audience questions. All right, so training plans. You know, what are issues that you have in terms of training? How are you overcoming them? And what have you seen changing in your work environment in terms of training? Who's up next? Lonnie, you're up next.
All right, I'll go ahead. It's kind of some of the same stuff that we've been talking about, issues for training and all that. Again, I know I said it a couple of times, but I think the way we're trying to help that, a lot of the training that we do to prevent the parts changers and all that is a lot of the times these older guys never really understood the theory behind they did what they did. They knew that, hey, I changed this part out a long time ago. The machine worked, and that's where they got their knowledge. And so that's usually their go-to now. It worked one time, so anytime the machine goes down, that's the first thing they do. So when we try to develop this training, so for the older guys who are good mechanics from a hands-on perspective, is really teaching them the theory behind why they do what they do. So that's what we do to try to help the older guys. For the younger guys, it's just the opposite. They may be book smart, they maybe understand Ohm's law and all that. Then you're trying to tie the hands-on, how it relates to your job. So that's the generation gap in those 2 different scenarios is how that's the challenge, because you can't treat everybody the same way when it comes to training.
Okay, Michael?
Yeah, absolutely. That everyone has a specific learning style as well. So some people will do great with a manual and not so well watching a video. Some people prefer a video. Some people prefer to have their hands on, and it doesn't matter how many times you explain it, until they go through the motions, they won't get it. So it's been a challenge for me to engage with the different technicians. Like one of them, we took from a paper manual and we put it online, and that was the training. And he came to me and said, can I get a book? Can I get this in book form? I just learn better when I've got pages in front of me rather than looking at a screen. Absolutely. I greatly appreciated that, because the goal is to get him the information, and it won't be standardized for everybody. If you have the opportunity to be a great tech, but we didn't give you what you needed, that's on us. And we have to be able to figure out what those things are.
Tex?
And we're really trying to do the troubleshooting aspect of it. In other words, have them go ahead and hook up components or motors, whatever it might be, and then we're actually introducing a bad component in there. So we're helping them understand, like Lonnie was talking about, we have so many people that they'll carry those parts in their pocket because that's what happened the last time. This sprocket went out or whatever. They maybe not even question it, but just know that's going to be the next thing that they need to do or how they're going to fix that. So we're trying to introduce the troubleshooting aspect of it and actually put a bad component in, let them troubleshoot it so they understand how the circuit works, not only with the SemiTech, but with the hands-on that we're doing in our facilities.
That makes sense. I want to talk a little bit about retention, and I don't necessarily need you to share your retention data or specific information, but just like industry-wide, is retention an issue, and what are you doing to overcome it if it is for your company? Well, Lonnie, we'll start with you.
Yeah, again, I sound like a broken record, but so when I say that's exactly why we break our training up in formal and practical. If anybody's ever seen what they call a learning pyramid, and you apply some kind of formal training, a lecture, reading a book, audio, visual, death by PowerPoint, if you will. What they tell you is your retention at best is going to be 30%. They're going to forget 70% of that material in the first 24 hours. A week later, they're going to forget another 10%. And so we have all these people. Am I still on?
Yeah.
Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, because my screen froze now. So my audio is working, but now my screen froze. So, so that's why it's so important when it comes to retention. You have to include the practical side to your training, or at best you have people out there every day that don't know 80% of what they should be knowing. And not to get political or anything, but I think that's what troubles me with our current, our school systems and everything else, because especially these kids nowadays are going to be working, from home. That's all they're going to get. They're going to get this book that's online, if you will, and they're not going to retain anything. And when that group hits the work area, they're not going to know anything. They're going to, and so that's the biggest thing, I think, for a retention standpoint, is you got to make sure you tie that practical side, or you have no chance of retention whatsoever. And now, regardless if it's safety, skills, whatever the case may be, it's very important to tie all that together.
Hey, Michael, retention, what do you think?
When you said retention, were you talking about information retention or employee
You know what?
retention?
I was thinking employee retention. Lonnie went information retention. Either way is fine, whatever.
Okay. Employee retention, we don't have a big problem with people coming and then leaving. The biggest problem we have is that people are retiring, is that we've got a fairly old, I don't say old.
Mature, vintage.
Thank you, mature. And many of them, I think our median technician age is 50 or 51. So within the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to lose a lot of people and a lot of skills that they're going to take with them. And how do we get that information from them into the next generation of techs before they're gone? Because you'll always have the guy who, well, this fuse always blows, and it's always this guy who figures it out. And now he's not here. Now what do we do?
And it's the same thing we're looking at. And I didn't coin this, but I love it. It's called the silver tsunami. I think that what we're going to see is a lot of the folks that, if you could see my picture, is got the same color hair as I do, and they're going to be retiring in, again, the next 5 to 10 years. So how we're trying to overcome that is that, one is we hope they'll stay, and two is that we're going to have to just train. We're going to have to enhance our training programs inside our plants, or what we've introduced into Northwest Arkansas. We're going to have a training center and try to have people come through there. So that's kind of how we know it's going to happen. We don't know if the stock market, the reduction in the stock market has kept people now, or, I'm 62 years old. Am I going to retire no matter what? Or my 401k just took a dump. So am I going to stay another couple of years? We don't know. This is too early to tell, but I think that's what we're going to face that pretty quick. So we're trying to get that set up to where we actually do bring people into a training center, and it may not even be big enough for that.
Right. Okay. We have 3 questions from the audience. Just going to go through them, and therefore all 3 questions are for everybody. So I'll start, and then we'll kind of go Lonnie first, and then Michael, and then Tex after. So first one from Sean. Thoughts on multi-trade versus specialists? In our organization in Michigan, we use journeymen, machine repair, tool makers, electricians with an internal apprenticeship program, 4 years. Constant pressure to use multi-trade so we can have more versatile workforce. So thoughts on that?
So it was Sean, correct?
Yeah, Sean, yeah.
Yeah, Sean. Well, Sean, so unfortunately, I know Tex is probably will mimic the same thing, but jack of all trades mechanics is probably what we deal with more than anything. So one of the things that we are trying to do as a company is change that direction and kind of mimic what I was used to in my prior life. Was if I have an electrical problem, I want to call my electrical specialist, not my jack of all trades. So one of the things with our training program that we're trying to develop is we teach a little bit of, we kind of teach the beginning, the intermediate, and advanced on a little bit of everything, the pneumatics, hydraulics, electrical, and mechanical. But once we get to that point, we have a career path, if you will, for these mechanics, that if they wanted to be a refrigeration expert, if they want to be a millwright expert, if they want to go into electrician, and we're trying to develop these groups. So when we have an issue with robotics, I'm calling my robotics technician and not the kid who can't read a tape measure, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Hey, Michael, what do you think?
We, in the past, started to gravitate towards having specialists rather than just a jack of all trades. And it actually improved our throughput and our uptime, because then, just like Lonnie said, you call that guy. You got this problem, you call that guy. And the problem gets solved quickly, and then your product goes out the door. What happens is they become so specialized that now they go on vacation and everything is down for a shift or a day because you don't have any redundancy. So you can swing too far the other way, and that as well. So what we're trying to develop now is an overall, jack of all trades is probably the best description of that, where you're familiar enough with everything that you can at least give it, the college try, instead of just saying, well, I've never had any training, and then walk away. So that's kind of the balance we're looking for right now.
Okay. Dex?
Yeah, in my former life, we did multi-craft. So we had the jack of all trades that was very skilled in all levels, and that worked out best. However, since I moved here, we found that that's not the case, because we have 100, 150 technicians in one facility. So those folks all can't be multi-craft people. And so we have that. So we're trying to set it up to where we have people, at least give them enough knowledge that after a few minutes, they know that they're above their skill levels and they can call somebody, instead of, like Michael said, I've never been trained on that. At least give it a go college try. Go out there and see. Don't tear anything up, but however, let's call the person that we need, and at least give it enough opportunity to know, hey, it's not a mechanical issue, it's an electrical issue. I need to get the electrician out here.
Okay, and there's a follow-up to that question. I'm going to start with you, Tex, and then we'll just go down. The follow-up from Sean was, any thoughts on mechatronic techs? Our organization is looking heavily at mechatronic techs to be more multi-trade and incorporate into the engineering function and roles.
So I don't know how that's going to affect, we are looking at auto mechanical techs. We're getting more and more automation in our facilities. COVID kind of just threw everything under the bus, because it's like, now we got people out. Can I automate this cell so I don't have to worry about having people here, blah, blah. But I think that we're looking that way. I don't know that it's going to be toward the engineering and that aspect of it, because sometimes it can almost become too special, and we get to where, don't bother me, because unless it's a real problem, don't holler at me. We can see that with specialists sometimes.
Yeah. Lonnie?
Yes, it's kind of the same thing Tex was talking about. I mean, what I usually find is, especially in our industry, is usually equipment doesn't break by itself, right? So there's usually a reason behind it. And being over labor now as well, the more I can keep people's hands off of equipment and I can automate this thing, the better off we are going to be as an industry. And I'm sure Tyson's the same way. The challenge is, as we automate things, we got to make sure, and that's why we're trying to develop the skills. Because if this thing goes down, if I put robotics in my plant, I better have some good robotic technicians, or I'm down and we're losing millions waiting on a third party to come out and do it. So as we continue to gravitate towards, automation, I think that's why by training, and I can't express it enough, why training is so important. Because we'll never be able to pull the plug and do it unless we have the right people in place to be able to maintain the equipment.
Okay.
In the past, we've looked at mechatronics techs, or people that are more electronic based, like an electronic technician. And because the job is a lot of times very physical and very mechanical, they've not been a good match for at least in the semiconductor industry, where a lot of times you're opening a vacuum chamber and you're scrubbing and cleaning that, you're moving pumps around. So it's more of a physical thing that you have to be doing. And an electronic bench tech is just not prepared for that. One of the things that has worked well, surprisingly, are automotive techs. That the few times we've gotten a recent automotive tech graduate in, they are used to working with wrenches, hand tools, removal and replacement of parts, diagnostic tools for the OBD2. You know, they're kind of a little more in tune with what semiconductor fab job is. So that's, you know, been a surprising match for us more than the mechatronics people.
So we have a few more questions. So instead of going around, we're just gonna cherry pick and ask one of you to answer them so we can cover them all before the end of the session. Okay, so this is from Jose. Can you provide a specific example of someone that turned from a parts changer to someone that was able to troubleshoot and find the root cause of the problem and only had to change one part to fix the issue? How long did it take the person to get trained? So Tex, can you?
So again, I know this shouldn't be a SemiTech thing, but this is exactly what we did. We had a person that went through one of our facilities that actually had replaced 173 parts through one of our training programs. And so we talked to that person, we sat down and went over it, explained to them. We had to show them how to read schematics, what the components was. We wiped out their training and started back up. 6 months later, they were like 1 or 2 components. So those are some of the things that we're seeing, but what we saw was that we didn't give that person the right opportunity to understand how the components work or even how a schematic works. So that was, they were frustrated. So
I don't have a good start to end story, but I've definitely worked with a few people with Simutex since I started this training job, and it's been the same thing, is that if we didn't, we've had PM techs that are wanting to work into a regular maintenance tech, and they just haven't had the background. So when you throw Simutech at them, they don't quite pick it up. They really need some more, some basics taught to them first before they can really start to use that tool well. And like Tex said, if you give them that and then back up and start over again, you can definitely see a difference in what they do.
And that's a good segue to toss the next question. It's related, so I'll toss it to Lonnie and see what he thinks. So the question reads, experience with using technical training such as YouTube video, etc., versus written work instructions. Our skilled trade learn much better via this method. It's what they do at home when their car fails, hit YouTube and learn. They come to work and are expected to read written documents to perform complex work. What do you think of that? Or like, what are some recommendations for, video, YouTube, other ways of learning than the traditional methods, I guess?
Yeah, and so see, to me, I totally agree. And that's where I follow the YouTube videos kind of stuff as part of our practical side of our training. So, and it really helps because that's everybody's go-to nowadays, right? I mean, it doesn't matter in what language it's in or anything, you can figure out anything by going to YouTube. So what we have done is we're actually creating our own little YouTube channel, if you will. So when it comes to doing a PM on a piece of equipment, we are actually YouTubing that and building that as part of the course. If they're doing a rebuild on a piece of equipment, we are taking a video and making that part of the course. We're also utilizing 360 cameras, if anybody's ever seen that, where the first week or two of orientation for our employees who may have never been in a chicken plant in their life, we have a 360 video of the inside of the entire complex where it's interactive, where they can actually, before they even hit the floor, they can see exactly what's in the plant. They can stop, pan left, pan right, zoom in without having to worry about, the noise, the ear, all the PPE you must wear, the potential tripping hazards and all that before they ever step foot on the floor.
Cool. Okay, last question. I'll toss it over to Michael, and then we'll just kind of do a wrap up because we only have a couple minutes left. So thoughts on tools used related to staffing numbers. We use indirect labor related to percentage of sales, ignoring maintenance backlog, etc. and then in brackets, metrics that are more common in maintenance industry, Doc, Palmer, etc.
I'm not 100% sure I understand the question.
Okay, Dex? No, go back. Michael, go ahead.
If I'm understanding it correctly, you're talking about metrics and how you gauge whether people are learning more.
Okay.
Does that make sense? We look at, of course, mean time to repair and mean time between failure, like most places do. What we've tried to focus on lately is more of a PM-based type of training, where the goal is to do as much as you can from this PM, at this PM, so that its tool stays up until the next PM and doesn't go down in those times. So that's really our goal, is to have nothing ever break, but it just goes down for preventive maintenance. That we don't have a metric to track that yet, but we're working on it.
Okay.
Yeah, so for us, the way I look at that question, and I'm assuming I always look at it from a maintenance side, is the P&F curve. If anybody's ever seen that curve, and it's exactly what the guys are talking about, the kind of the proactive, predictive, reactive kind of, and where you fall in place in that. So with that training, we are starting to see how we are gravitating, in that curve, because you had a whole lot of parts changers and we were in firefighting mode all the time. And as you develop their skills, as you help them with troubleshooting and stop changing the same motor 5 times, and you find out you have 5 working motors in the boneyard because it wasn't the motor. As you continue to grow with that, you can see how you'll move up along that P&F curve, and safety follows right along with it as well.
So we have a couple of minutes left. I just want to kind of go around and just see if you have any final recommendations, any final remarks. And so we'll start with Tex.
I appreciate the opportunity to do this today. It's very refreshing, I think, sometimes to go and talk to people similar issues. I mean, I've been doing this for a long time and I was surprised, really, or maybe I shouldn't have been, that protein and motors are basically the same. You got people, processes, and equipment. So you have the same challenges, and it's just a different venue.
For sure. Lonnie, any final comments?
No, this is great, and I thank you for putting this together, and how your program is really help us close some of those gaps that everybody faces. Is great to, again, just like to mimic what Mike said, we're all struggling with the same thing, and it doesn't matter if it's COVID or anything else, skills. We're all talking about people and processes, and I'm thankful as well that you put this together. So,
thank you, Michael.
Absolutely agree. I appreciate the chance to talk with other people as well and to answer questions. And if I could walk away to say this is the one thing that I would have people focus on, it's that focus on the core, focus on the basics. Because if you don't understand that, then the next level you're not going to understand, and the next level you're not going to understand. Spend as much time as you need getting people the core understanding of things so that they can build on that.
Okay, well, before we wrap up, I have to do my part and say thank you so much for the effort, for working with us on getting this together, and for doing it today. Very insightful. I learned a lot, and hopefully those on the line did. I can tell it was very well received from the number of questions. We have a couple that came in last minute we didn't get to, but we'll forward them around and get you an answer. So very much appreciated. You guys stay safe out there, and we will see you, and we'll circulate the video of the webinar probably tomorrow. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You too.